Today we're going to look at storytelling in art. There are a lot of different reasons why people make art. Sometimes it's just to make something that looks amazing. Sometimes it's a devotional object to their religion. Sometimes people want to have a political message, and sometimes people want to tell a story. So how do we tell a story with just pictures? When we look at the oldest artworks known to humankind, like this painting, cave painting from Indonesia, we can see that humans have always tried to use pictures to tell stories. In this case, it's the picture of people hunting a large animal, which is what a lot of cave art is about. Finding food was the most important task humans could do back in those times. When we see drawings of people and people in action, we call it figurative drawing. So from the very beginning, we have been trying to tell our own stories through drawing people interacting with the world around them. Next, we have this vase. It's 2,500 years old, so much newer than the last thing we looked at. It shows Ajax and Achilles playing a board game. And this is a very common type of vase from the times in Greece where they used the surface of the pot to tell famous stories that were known to the people of the day. How do we know what the characters are doing? Well, we can look at their posture. They're both looking over something on a table or platform. They both have their hands touching it, and they both look very intensely engaged with it. Next, we have this piece from about 400 years ago in China, Searching the Mountains for Demons. And this is actually two parts of a very long scroll. The Chinese created a format of painting in a very long scroll that could go across an entire wall, and a viewer could see different parts of the story as they moved through the space. So this is the story of a Chinese legend in which the god Erlong is driving demons out of a forest. We can tell again what the characters are doing and feeling based on the positions of their body, if they're doing any kind of action, and the expressions on their faces, as well as the props and costumes that show what kind of characters that they are. There's another painting by Georges Latour called The Musician's Brawl, and it shows two musicians fighting and a couple people looking on. I want you to notice a few things about this. First of all, how do we know they're musicians? We know because Georges Latour included their instruments to show us what kind of people they are, how they make their money. We can also tell a lot about the characters in the scene. On the far left, we have a woman grasping her hands and looking shocked at the fight that's ensuing. And on the far right, we have a guy who clearly looks like he's enjoying watching the battle. He'd probably be the person going, ha ha, in any kind of fight situation. Next, we have this painting by Jacob Lawrence. Jacob Lawrence is a famous American painter from the 20th century. He actually spent a lot of his life in Seattle and teaching at the University of Washington. This is one of his pieces from the Migration series that depicted the time of when African Americans left the South in large numbers after slavery and during Jim Crow. They were fleeing Jim Crow laws and moving north to areas like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Seattle. You can see people carrying all of the things that they own as they move north, and the birds are also moving north with them. Jacob Lawrence has decided to tell this story, which is the story of his parents, actually. In his art, he's illustrating and painting historical moments. Next, we have the artist Faith Ringgold. And she also, this is part of a series called The American Collection. This particular piece is called We Came to America, and it is a painted silk quilt. She uses painting on silk and quilt instead of painting on traditional canvases. Her choice of materials is a big part of her identity. Not only is quilting considered women's work, but also there's a long tradition in Black Southern women culture to do quilting. So she's choosing these materials to also honor her own heritage as she tells the story of specifically of how we Black people came to America. And you can see this image is using a lot of different historical references to tell one larger story. Here's another artwork by Romare Bearden. This one is a collage. A collage is simply cut paper, so he's not using paint and a brush. He's using cut paper and glue to create his image. And this is another historical story, an image of a nightclub in Harlem in the 1930s. He painted this 50 years after it happened, and he was looking again back at his own history and his family's history and important moments in his family's history. So writing a story and making a picture about a story have a lot of the same characteristics, and they use the same strategies. So in writing a story, we have a plot, we need to think of a setting and what's the atmosphere going to be like. We think about characterization, we think about theme, and we think about point of view. In making a picture, we're not able to tell the whole plot in a picture unless of course you're doing the Chinese scroll style. But we choose an important moment or combination of moments in the story that will make us think of the whole story. We definitely need setting, and we can use pictures to show where the story is taking place. We need atmosphere. We use color, texture, and value to show the mood of a place. We describe characters. We show what a character is like through how they're dressed, what kind of body language and facial expressions they're showing. We definitely show theme. We use the elements of art to show mood, tone, and subject. And then point of view, the artist uses different techniques to think about who the subject is, who's the main character in the story. Now it's your turn. You are going to be telling a story of an event using imagery. You're going to communicate and express the mood and the setting and the feeling, the characters, and the events that took place. You're going to do it all with pictures. Your first step is to brainstorm ideas of stories and imagery to tell your own story. So storytelling helps us understand important events in our lives and shares our experience with others. We are going to make a list of the stories we might want to tell in our sketchbook or on another piece of paper. Some ideas for stories: a significant historical event that has occurred during your life. Maybe it's an important event that's related to your heritage, culture, nationality, ethnic group, or community. So maybe it's not happened in your lifetime, but it is important to you, your family, and your community. Maybe it's an event that happened in your family or has influenced your family. Not something that's famous that was in the newspapers, but an event that was very important to you and yours. Stop the video here and write your list of story ideas. Next, step 2, you're going to work in your sketchbook or on a separate sheet of paper. You are going to make a mind map to generate ideas for your images. So you'll choose one story and you're going to think about and brainstorm all the different aspects of that story. Start with your story idea in the middle of the page and then write down all of the details that you can think of that will help the story. You're going to include characters, setting, important moments, and other things that you can draw that will add to the story. Include details such as important names, dates, and circumstances. Within each character, what kind of characterization are you going to show them? Are they an evil character? Are they the hero? How do the characters feel about each other? How did they dress? What was the setting like? You're going to be brainstorming all of this on a mind map. Stop here and create your mind map. Now that we've done all of our brainstorming, we are going to put it all together into a composition. A composition is just the arrangement of our images. We've learned a couple of different compositional techniques before. This time we're going to be looking at overlapping and cropping as our main compositional elements. So remember, a composition is just a way to arrange the different elements in our artwork. We are going to combine our mind map ideas into an interesting composition, and then we're going to use thumbnail sketches to come up with a few ideas. Here are some more guides to help you create a dynamic and exciting piece. Artists have a million tools in their toolbox to help them come up with different ways to make their art look interesting and dynamic, such as overlapping or cropping, rotating things into unexpected angles, using color to decide where the focal point is, and maybe placing things off center to make things to lead our eye to where they want us to look first in the painting or artwork. In this artwork, I want you to make sure to use space. Space is the illusion of 3 dimensions, and there's a lot of different ways to achieve that. One of the ways that we are going to do this is using overlapping. Overlapping puts objects in front of the other objects, and it creates this illusion of layers. So you can see on the left, there's definitely an apple that's in the front, and there are several behind it. And why we know they're behind it is because the artist has erased part of the apples to make it look like one is in front of the other. Another technique that we're going to be using is called cropping and extending. So in this case, the object should extend beyond the border of the page. You can see on the left, the apple is somewhat cut off. And what that does is it makes the viewer feel like they're actually in the picture rather than looking at it from far away. So in your sketchbook or on another separate piece of paper, you're going to make some thumbnail sketches. I want you to try 3 different arrangements to tell your story. You're going to turn your ideas into image and think about how are you going to tell the story with pictures. So at this point, I want you to stop and make your thumbnail sketches before you move on to your final piece of art. If you have finished with your brainstorming, your mind map, and your thumbnail sketches, you're now ready to move on to your final artwork. So let's review our goal. Our goal is that I can tell a story using imagery to communicate an important moment in time. We are telling the story of an event. There's no specific formula for this project. I want you to make an interesting composition that tells a story. That's it. So make sure that you're going to include visual clues for character, setting, mood, and theme. I want to know if the characters like each other. I want to know if what the setting is, what the time is, what the place is. I want you to try to use overlapping images and cropping and extending in your composition so that you can give the viewer a sense of space in your picture. You can create this piece in your own style and use the medium of your choice. So you can use pencil and paper, you can use paint, you can do digital, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Time for you to get started and make your own artwork.